Councillor Sarah Doucette. I guess we'll start out with some general questions. This has been your first term in office. Have your expectations coming into it been different from the reality?
I thought I knew what I was getting into. I understood it would be a lot of hours, which it is, around a 60, 70-hour week. But I thought, oh, no problem, if I work weekends, I can take a day off during the week. Well, you can't, because there's meetings going on, and there's things which need doing, and staff need your opinion on things. So a lot of weeks it is a 7-day week, and I'm not saying the weekends are 8 to 5, but you'll go to 3 or 4 events, and then Sundays there's usually some events as well, so you never get a complete day off. I also find that, I guess I should have expected it, things move very slowly in the city of Toronto. So you're wanting to get something done, and you have to, check with a department, you have to check sometimes with legal, you have to get some paper, permission, a permit. It takes an awful long time to get anything done.
Just on that note, what changes are you hoping to advance and put in your ward in the future?
Well, one of the things I am changing actually right now, a lot of residents in my ward are very passionate about various events, activities, or projects. Clean Train Coalition has been around for, I think about 5-6 years now, and what I've been helping them as well, what we've been trying to do is stop the the railway link from Union Station to the airport being diesel. We want it to be electric. And so Clean Train Coalition has signs, lawn signs, saying Clean Train Coalition, go electric. I have another group in my ward called Save Our Village. We're trying to keep our village as a village rather than big development coming in. All those lawn signs are illegal. So if as a neighbor you were to complain about my lawn sign, the city would have to send someone from Municipal Licensing Standard out to look at that lawn sign. I'd be given 24 hours to remove it, and if not, I'd get fined, I think it's something like $72. Well, isn't there better ways to spend our money? Shouldn't people have a right to complain about something or be passionate about something? So I went to City, and I went to the staff, and I've asked them to write a report to show how we can make those lawn signs legal. So there's still going to be a certain size. You can't block sightlines on traffic and things. That is coming to a meeting in May, which will come to June Council. And then those people who have lawn signs will be legal. Something like that is amazing actually what you can do when you want to do things. Just as an example for timing, when in Jamie Bell Playground we had a fire. This is nearly 2 years ago now. And we lost a good portion of the play equipment. And this is a big playground in Hyde Park and everyone loves it. And it's in March, and I'm going, wow, the zoo is under threat of closing. We've lost part of our playground. We can't close the playground down as well. So for record speed, in 4 months, we got and rebuilt that playground. So you can make things happen. One of the things I'm desperately trying to do in our wards is get some more line painting on the roads to show where bikes go. It won't actually be a bike path or bike lane because some of our streets aren't wide enough, but it will have pictures of bicycles on the road surface so residents know that these are recommended bike routes. Daycare, very important. We're losing a number of daycare units because of the all-day learning. So I'm trying desperately to help them either move to smaller locations so they can stay alive or help them maybe change to a before and after school program. Those are some of the things we're working on.
Report into Toronto's quality of life that was adopted by City Council, and it designates priority neighborhoods. This was a strategy that replaced a 2006 strategy. How has that strategy being adopted changed how we invest in the city?
I do not have any priority neighborhoods designated in my ward. What was interesting was they came up with different criteria as to what would be a priority neighborhood, and that took some groups out and put some groups in. I think it will take us a year or two to see how that has affected the groups which come out. I like the new criteria they have because you're looking at bigger picture, different ideas on who should be getting this extra funding for the people who can't afford to have programming. So I agree with what we're doing. I would love to have more programs than less programs, but obviously there's only so many dollars you can put into these programs right now, and we were trying to put it into the areas where the people need it the most. The areas which came out of a designation had, some of them had been able to improve some of the criteria marks, which is why they came out. So our hope is that the people who are doing programming in those areas will continue doing the programming in the areas, and it won't affect the fact that they've lost some of it. But that's a big concern, because if you're putting funding out of an area, is that area going to be able to survive? Or next time round, is it going to be back in there because its criteria has gone back down again? We're going to have to see on that one. I know the city worked very, very hard on that, and we have to trust our staff, who are the experts in this area. But I'll be interested to see what happens in the next few years. But we've got to keep an eye on it so no neighbourhood suffers because they were brought out.
One of the things that is coming into effect now is the cuts that were made during the 2012 budget, where they tried to slash 10% of all services. One of the affected things is libraries.
Yes.
How has that 10% cut affected libraries?
We never did a 10% cut. We never did a zero cut either. Libraries are unique. We have 98 branches right now. We used to have 99. One was closed in my first budget actually was closed. I voted against it. The things with the library system is that if you were to do a 10% cut, you would be closing branches, because you can't just say, okay, I'm taking 10% out, because cost of inflation, cost of programming, and what we were going to lose was library branches, hours, possibly branches, and programming. So we were able to come up with a budget which put some of the money back in, so it wasn't a 10% cut. We had to cut some things, or we looked for more efficiencies. We had a program where we lost actually 107 staff positions because we offered early retirement, or a package to leave, which the city also offered. So we did lose staff, but we were able through also, because in the library board now we've been approving mechanical check-in and check-out of books. You don't need so many staff members there. So if you take a book off a shelf and you can just scan it and take it, walk out the door, you don't need a librarian, which I think is a shame, because I think you go to a library to meet that librarian, pick their brains, what's a good book, what's not a good book. It's a place to go to meet and greet, as well as borrow books and all the different technology. So at the library board we've been very careful. The other thing we've had is this year coming, 2014, 2015, we were told to do a 0% increase again. But we've got 2 new branches coming on board. We've got one in Scarborough, and we've also got one at Fort York. 2 brand new branches. You've got to put books in them. You have to have some new librarians. So we went to the city manager and we pleaded our case. And this is what we've done each year. We've pleaded our case. You need to add new books every year. You need to just maintain what you've got as well. And with technology changing, it costs more to buy an e-book.
With the library system going increasingly digital,
Yes.
What changes are you beginning to see in terms of library visitations and being able to get community services in there?
So visitations have dropped a little bit because people can go and well, we used to just order the book online and then go pick it up. Now you order your book online and you download it to whatever you're going to be reading it on. So you don't have to go visit a library anymore to participate in the programming we are offering, or services we're offering. However, you'll find children's programs still very well attended. We do programs for people who English isn't their first language. We do programs for someone starting a new business. You can go and learn how to start a new business. We also do things like if you're new to the country and English isn't your first language, and how do you know where to find a bank, or how to do banking, or just human skills, living skills. So there's certain programs there which doesn't matter whether you're using books or electronic, is a service. Obviously one of the things we've done over the years is add more computers. So people who don't have computers at home can go into a branch, book a time and use the computers. We do programs helping people find a job. So libraries aren't any longer, I always say it's the four walls with books. It's not that any longer. There's much more to it. You've got different programming. The reference library, we have a 3D printer. You can go and print something for certain dollars, and you can print something 3D. We're changing technology, and we're really trying to move with the times. The biggest problem we've had with e-books is a lot of publishers don't want to sell libraries their e-books. They don't want you to buy it. So that's made it quite difficult. Beginning to change. More publishers are opening up, which means that if you don't have enough choice of variety, people aren't going to rent e-books. So we are moving with the times. Any different technology we are desperately trying to get hold of and understand. We want to stay the best library in the world.
Moving into health, 2 years ago when the issue of supervised injection centers came up, you voted in favor. Why do you think such a program is necessary in Toronto?
As a new councillor, I visited one of the Toronto Health injection centres, and people say, oh, you're encouraging people to take drugs. That's not the case. What you're trying to do is you're giving someone a safe place to go and take the drugs they are taking, but you're providing them with a clean needle. You're providing them with, if there's a reaction to the drugs, there's medical help. You're also opening up that door to opportunity to help them get off the drugs. If they're going down a dark alley with a dirty needle and taking drugs, they're going to keep doing that. You don't have any face-to-face contact to try and help them. So it's the needle exchange, it's the safe injection center. People go in there some of them are reaching out for help. They know it's a safe place and they know there's someone to talk to. So I think people have to understand that sometimes people get hooked on drugs and it's very hard to get off. You can go and talk to someone and you want to get off, they can give you help. So I'm not saying they go into every neighborhood. They're not needed in every neighborhood, but they're needed where the people are taking drugs. Clean needles stops spreading hepatitis. It stops a lot of diseases out there. So we're looking at it from the health of the person who's doing the drugs, the health of the community as well, and the fact that you can help them through their lives and maybe help them stop taking drugs and go back into society. That's why I supported it.
There's a lot of in these communities where you would need these safe injection sites, it's very hard to outreach to residents who are low income. What kind of challenges exist in reaching out to low income residents in terms of providing health services?
Oh boy, yes. You're right, it's very hard to reach out to someone if they don't know where to go or they're too scared to come. At the Board of Health, we always deal with this because we want to provide health services to everyone, not just people who know where to find a doctor. It's very hard finding a doctor nowadays, in fact. As you know, we have dental clinics where seniors and children can go for free. So we try and do as much publicity as we can. We do ads, TTC ads, paper ads. You go into a library, you can pick up information on health services. You do in the local newspaper. When people come from other countries and they go to a service, there'll be information there as well. We do have home visits for some people if they can't get out of their home or they need someone to go and visit them, whether it's because they're taking a particular drug and they need to take it every day and we have to make sure they are taking their medication. But again, technology is changing in that if you can Skype someone, it means that nurse can watch them take their medication and make sure they have taken their medication, but they still have that human contact. So reaching out is one of our priorities, making sure that everyone gets the services they need. Not always easy, but at the Board of Health, we really try and encourage.
How do you think we could have better dealt with the storm that happened?
Oh, gosh. Oh, I can give you pages. So in July 8th, we had our heavy rainstorm. My ward, we had some flooded basements, but our biggest problem was the power outage. My south part of the ward, we get all our power from one line which goes into a Manby transmission station, which is in Etobicoke. they pulled 15 Olympic-sized swimming pools worth of water out of that Manby station. It's underground. Because for some reason they don't like putting them above ground because you might get hit by I don't know what anyway. So it's underground, and it happened that the power section for my area was like bottom of the rung, so water comes up, we went out, water went up, water went down, we were the last one to be dried out kind of thing. So my home and the south part of our ward, we were out for 46 hours. My biggest concern was in a single family home, okay, you can do without hydro because you have water. You can usually get yourself out of the house if you have to, no problem. But I have high rises in my ward, and my biggest concern was once their generators died, there's no rules about how you power a generator. So whatever fluid you're using and it's done, your generator stops. What do you do with a senior on the 17th floor of a building with no power? The pumps which power the water in that building have stopped, so you've got no running water, you've got no toilets, you've got no elevators. That was what we were in the dilemma of. We worked from here, which had power at this point, with as many of our property management companies and asked if they had a thing called a vulnerable list. Some of the property management had vulnerable lists, so they could actually go up the stairs and knock on doors and make sure the seniors were okay. Not necessarily seniors, people with disabilities. We found a lot of families came and took their loved ones away to areas where there was power, which was great. When the ice storm came in December, it was a weekend. So I was wondering why I wasn't getting any information from the city. Why wasn't I being informed of what was going on and things? All the information was coming into my office. I was at home. So all the emails and all the phone calls were coming here to this office, not to my cell phone, which is with me 24/7 in my home. So through other councillors, we managed to get us connected to the city emergency office, and they started sending us information to our personal cell phones, to our email addresses, which isn't a councillor account, but is our own city account. When I asked, so back to July a minute, at the end of July, with the power just coming back on, the Red Cross came into some of the buildings with me, and we went door to door. It's called a wellness visit. So you knock on the door, and you make sure the resident is okay. And we handed out information to them about what to do with all the stuff in their fridge. Because 48 hours, some stuff in the fridge you can keep, some you just have to get rid of for your own health reasons. So when I called on the Red Cross at Christmas time, because I wanted to go and check on some of these residents in the building, they couldn't provide me with anyone because they were dealing with warming centres. So I basically was on Twitter constantly because, again, a lot of people don't have phones, they don't have TVs, they don't have internet. So I was on Twitter giving people advice as to where warming centres were, advice what to do to run a tap in your house so your pipes don't freeze. If you've got a senior or an invalid person, please get them out of the area. What I found out later was I could have called my local police department and they would have come and helped me do wellness visits, but I didn't have that information. However, our police station was a warming centre. So I have sent long letters to the city manager, to Hydro One, who owned the transmission station, to Hydro, saying, here's our suggestions. Residents were fantastic after the fact, and we got our power back. At Christmas we were out for 43 hours in some parts of my ward. Others were out for 10 days. So my job was to keep in contact with my residents as much as I could, send their information to Hydro, because we, at that point, the second time round, we had a contact with Hydro, making sure that Hydro was aware that these people were out. I had to let Hydro do their own priority list of what got the power back, and really was there for residents to try and give them as much advice as possible. But my suggestions to the Hydro and the city manager was better communication. Go on the radio. A lot of, I found our seniors had battery-operated radios. In July, when I'd gone on the radio and talked about what was going on and given advice, a lot of seniors contacted this office and said, we heard you on the radio. The seniors have the old style telephone, which still works in a power outage. They still have the battery-operated radios. So I've suggested we actually have a radio station which, in the case of an emergency, people could tune into and get information from the city, what the emergency is, how long it's going to last, if it's the power, if it's flooding, what it is, so everyone knows where to go. Because even though Bloor Street in my ward still had power, north and south we were out. So if you could get to Bloor Street, you're okay. In the ice storm, one of the problems we had was we had seniors in single family homes couldn't get out of their house because it was ice. So I went around with a bucket of salt, salted their pathways, got them out of their homes, let them walk to Bloor Street, and then they could get in and out. Then they could look after themselves. We needed more lists of the people who would need help in case of an emergency. I had a group at a meeting I had the other day. I held it was an emergency preparedness meeting. And I had a group come to the meeting called the Zombie Survival Group. Okay? Yes. Interesting group. They have access to 11,000 people. I put them in touch with the Red Cross guy who was at my meeting. So in case of an emergency, the Red Cross could go to this zombie survival group who could volunteer to come and help seniors, to do whatever's necessary, to knock on people's doors, to give them advice. We need to be able to get out to the vulnerable people and either get them to a warming center, make sure they have food and water if they want to stay in their homes, make sure someone checks in on them. There's a lot of things the city can do. Use 311, our city phone number. When the hydro went out, we had to phone hydro. They're not prepared for that. Massive, thousands of phone calls. 311 should have been used to help hydro. We've started to implement that as well. So as city councillors, we learnt an awful lot, and we're trying to now give our information to hydro and the city. So if we have another, when we have another ice storm, when we have another massive rainstorm, we are better prepared. We could have done a lot better.
We're still kind of cleaning up after the storm.
Yes.
We lost a lot of our tree canopy.
Yeah.
How has it been to try and regenerate that canopy?
Interesting you asked that one. First of all, we don't know how much damage was done to the tree canopy because I had a tree in my garden. It had 2 branches, one whole branch came down, the other one's still there. I'm leaving it alone. It might survive. I probably won't know that for a year or 2. So we're trying to encourage residents, don't just come and straight away cut down a tree. Give it a chance. Prune it, take the dead wood off it, balance it up. Get an expert to come in and look at it. I am the city's tree advocate, so trees are very near and dear to my heart. We had a roundtable meeting this last Tuesday. I went to the deputy mayor and I said, Deputy Mayor, we need to do something. The city has very good plans of moving forward with the tree canopy, but we've had emerald ash borer beetles, we've had the Asian longhorn beetles, we've got the gypsy moth. All those 3 bugs have attacked the various trees, and then we have the ice storm. So this roundtable meeting was with groups who can help us either by planting trees, donating money so we can find trees. It was all the groups who, if we come together, because the city only plants trees on city property, what about the school boards? What about churches? What about plazas? What about private owners of homes planting trees? Our goal as a city is to go from, which was 26% tree canopy, don't have a definite number right now, to 40% by 2050. But we're going to need people to help us now because we were on track until all these beetles and bugs and the ice storm. So we know that we need to replant trees. We need to replant them over a 10-year span, not all at once. We need to look at the type of tree, where it's planted. They're not just beautiful. They clean our air. They take the rainwater and absorb it. They keep our hydro bills down in the summer and the winter. They mean that we need less infrastructure. So trees are very, very important, and I am working very hard with the city and with other organizations to find the funding to keep our 10-year plan going. If we can keep that plan going, we're going to be fine.
In Toronto, it can be hard for residents, especially in high-rises, to use recycling programs.
Yes.
How do we get more recycling programs into high-rises and rent-controlled buildings?
So right now you're right, if you live in an old building, you have one garbage chute. New buildings are building garbage chutes for recycling, garbage, and composting. I've got a high-rise in my ward which was built I think about 10 years ago, and just a couple of months ago we gave them each the little kitchen catcher bins. So they will catch their kitchen waste in their bin, put it in their bin, and then they're responsible for bringing it down and emptying it into another bin in a room where they also already bring their recycling. So we're encouraging landlords. It has to be the landlord who approaches the city. We will then go and help educate the residents, put up posters, show them that in my house, you know, I've got my blue bin where I put all my paper and glass and plastic and metal, which used to be separated. Remember, we used to have paper and then everything else, so it's now in one. I got my black garbage bin, which is really small, and then I got my green bin. And that's what we're trying to get into the multi-residential buildings. It is possible, but you have to get a landlord who's prepared to encourage residents to do it. And it takes, again, a community evening where you explain to people what to do. They get really excited, all rah, rah, rah. And you have to make sure you have enough bins for them to bring their bin down to empty it into. It has to be easy. So if you're going to give them a bin, you know, you say, okay, this bin comes to here, and these garbage cans, the green bins will be out at certain hours for you to come and empty in. People want to do it. They understand that the less we do, the more our landfills are going to fill up quicker. We want to encourage recycling. We want to encourage kitchen waste. Something has to go to the landfill, we know that, but let's reduce it as much as possible. The other thing we're also doing as a city is taking e-waste, you know, electronic waste. We don't want that going into the landfill either, because partly the chemicals and partly a lot of the stuff which you're recycling, you can actually recycle and use again. So getting into multi-residential buildings, we are getting there. We'd like to do it faster, but we have to do it one step at a time, but you have to have property management or owners on board.
This has been Councillor Sarah Doucette. Thank you so much for the interview.
You're welcome. Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.